Welcome back to Gamers Without Borders. We have two more series coming at you today. Both best of fives, both qualifying players on into Gamers 8 here at Gamers Without Borders. We are going to be moving on to the EPT bracket now, and joining me to talk about everything EPT, we have, wow, that was very, very bright. We've got ZG as well as Rotterdam to start talking about this. So I think first off, we're probably going to look at the bracket and see how everything has shaped up so far here, Roddy. But our first match is actually going to be that Oliveira going up against Hiram rematch, and then after that we of course have SpeCial versus Serral. I think we can briefly talk about that one first, because of course we're going to be focusing on that TVT. So the fact that SpeCial here has been able to get into that qualification match, Roddy, against Reina before and now playing off against Serral, if he's able to make magic, that would be unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, that's pretty much the hardest bracket you can give to anyone when it comes to the European region or the entire foreign region even. And he looked great yesterday, man. That was not a lucky victory. He didn't proxy 2 racks or 3 racks. SpeCial just played great like he did at IEM Katowice. And I think it's going to be hard to find anyone who can say that that was not a well-deserved victory for SpeCial. Yeah. But today it's going to be even harder. Serral has been absolutely monster moding ever since Katowice didn't totally go his way. The man has literally only lost 1 series in the last 2 months, and he's been looking great in everything he plays, but Showtime made him work for it yesterday.
Yeah, I was surprised when that stat was brought up yesterday that he's only lost 1 series since. But down towards the lower bracket, Lambo versus Spirit and Reina versus Showtime. And as we kind of alluded to with the previous result that we were talking about with SpeCial ZG, I don't think Reina nor Showtime expected this to be the match down in the lower bracket.
Poor Showtime, right? Because apparently he was quite close versus Serral, and you might be like, oh, he's finally doing it. He's finally doing it. Oh, okay, that's a bummer. Well, you know, lower bracket might be okay. Okay, you got to face Reina. Like, that's just, that's falling into multiple, you know, traps. It's falling into multiple rakes. It's just painful. But I guess what we can say is that he did show some very good PvZ, and Rainer is apparently a bit off. SpeCial played great, but he's kind of the expected winner.
Sure.
And so Showtime might cause one of the biggest upsets, which is just, you know, actually defeating Rainer and kind of knock him out of this particular chance.
Yeah, can you imagine? That would be wild. But I mean, we've seen already very interesting things go down in these brackets so far. So now let's focus in here on our first match for the EPT bracket. It is going to be the world champion Oliveira going up against Hiram. And Roddy, to start with you, if you'd have told me maybe 2 years ago, you looked at Katowice runs and thinking to yourself, Hiram, he's made a top 4. Maybe he's one of the guys to be able to eventually get to that Katowice final and maybe take it all. But Oliveira went zooming past him last year, of course, to be able to make that very emotional World Championship run.
Yep, but I think you're wrong, Kalaris. I think we switch things up, and that's not your fault, mate, because it would make sense that we do the TVT first, but somehow, I guess one of the players couldn't make it to the earlier slot or couldn't make it into the later slot. So we have swapped things around, and it's actually the TVZ that we are going to be previewing here. But we'll talk more about that TVT with you later, Kalaris, in your little dome, don't you worry. But the TVZ it is. You already touched upon this briefly, so you're still nailing it. SpeCial versus Serral. I think there are many reasons to be very hyped for this one. Do you believe, Zombie Grub, that SpeCial can bring out the same magic as he did yesterday against Rainer?
Well, I think he can play up to that performance. I think the problem would be just that as far as styles and kind of the expectations, Rainer and Serral do play differently in the matchup. So I think it looks solid. I always believe SpeCial is going to look solid. So I'm going to say the same thing I've said for the past like 2 years, which is that I'm going to be really amazed at how SpeCial plays. But then he's just going to get maybe like a little unlucky or like one bad micro mistake, and then Serral is going to pounce on it and obliterate him. So, and he has less time, I guess, to prepare for this as well. He does definitely believe that TVZ, it's up to the Terran to kind of mix things up and surprise the Zerg. And it just gets more difficult in these weekend tournaments.
Yeah, it just gets hard against someone like Serral, who, as you said, Roddy, has been on such a strong streak since Katowice, and is probably thinking to himself, okay, well, I've got a great opportunity here to once again put a lot of money in the bag when it comes to qualifying for Gamers 8 and being able to move on into Riyadh, right?
Yeah, but whether this prize pool is as big as it is or would have been a whole lot smaller, if Serral signs up, he signs up to perform, to deliver. The man just does not like losing. So for some players, you can definitely say, like, yeah, they step it up in the bigger tournaments. I feel that Yona pretty much always steps it up if he decides to participate. And yeah, the numbers don't lie. SpeCial did great against Serral once upon a time, but that was before Serral became Serral. The first 3 times that these two ever played against each other, SpeCial won all 3, but that was all prior to 2017. Since 2017, Serral is on a 9-0 win streak against SpeCial. He just kind of has his number.
All right, well, thank you very much, guys. Not only have I been bamboozled by the schedule, but hopefully maybe SpeCial can bamboozle Serral here in this best of 5. Again, the winner will move on to Gamers 8. So without further ado, let's head over to the commentators.
Another great TVZ headed our way with SpeCial versus Serral. I'm Fear Dragon, joined here by Cats. And Cats, I know that you were looking a little bit into this series, and I know that they were talking on the desk about this, the history between these two players. And I want to get your take on it, man. Like, what's the hopium, what's the copium on this?
Well, that's pretty much, yeah, what they brought up, right? Like, SpeCial is playing great right now. That is the hope for him, right? He just defeated Reynor. That's a lot of momentum. That shows a class of playership that if he can bring it here and make it a series against Serral, if he can somehow win this, it's a best of 5, not even a best of 3, then, you know, fantastic. And we have to start talking about SpeCial in a different light, I think, in this matchup. But realistically, I mean, the odds are lower even than they were against Reynor. The stats are even worse for SpeCial than they were yesterday. So we'll see what happens, but it's gonna be tough for sure.
All right, well, we're going to start down here at the bottom right-hand side of the map. Atop the red Terran player representing Storm Gaming. He is the Reynor player, SpeCial.
Whoa, a pause. Quick pause here. Not much to be concerned about. No, we don't usually get paused in the intros. Now his picture is kind of frozen there. Yeah. And we are back here in just a small portion of Calaris's massive dome. I loved how Roddy was like your little dome and Calaris looked around. And it's huge. It's huge. It's a big dome.
A tiny dome that also has like this little background over here of everyone's lights that are in the audience flashing around. Yeah,
that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people fitting in the dome.
Well, it's small compared to Calaris's, you know, mansion house. So
that is true. Yeah, yeah. The dome might just be a subsection of his car, if anything. It is
Calaris in his cars, man. You know, he likes to escalate things every year, I guess.
I suppose so. Yeah, it's fantastic. But yeah, enough about Calaris and his dome. This series should be pretty exciting. I feel like SpeCial is one of those players that anyone that likes trying to play mech should be looking at. Of course, his multitasking is out of this world, so you know it's not the easiest thing to emulate, but the concepts are always there as far as like harassing with the Hellions, like looking for those openings and trying to mix things up. We saw a couple of proxy liberators yesterday as well, right? So keeping up the pressure and harassing to slow down your opponent into a big mech push, that is kind of SpeCial's win condition. At the same time, we saw how Reynor almost dealt with it while being miles behind, and that was super impressive, right? When he got up to like 8-9 Vipers, even though he had so few Hydras, just Reynor and his incredible execution as well, right? Like we saw yesterday, pulling the tanks into a clamped up spot, then laying blinding clouds. But he really kind of showed how effective he can be, because he was so far behind that realistically in an even game you could have twice that army that Reynor had. And then I don't know how you do it with mech, at least not with the pieces that SpeCial was playing yesterday.
Yeah, I think we'll have a lot to talk about that. It does seem like we're going to make sure that everything is totally resolved before we get on started. So enjoy a little bit of extra content while we get this next series properly set up.
외국 선수들과 한국 선수들의 차이점을 보자면은 예전에 협회 시절에는 사실 이렇게 선수들이 다 같이 모여가지고 전략도 토론하고 서로 커스텀 게임도 많이 하면서 준비를 했었는데, 지금은 협회가 사라지면서 다 개인 연습을 하거든요. 그 점에서 솔직히 한국 시장이 안 좋아졌다고 생각하고 다른 건 다 똑같지만 외국 선수들이 커스텀 게임을 조금 더 많이 하는 것 같고 한국 선수들은 레더 위주로 준비하는 편인 것 같아요.
Well, I think the main difference between Korean and European players, or I guess foreigners in general, is that I feel like foreigners have more of the perfection in approach. We kind of want to play the game the way it's kind of supposed to be. I mean, there's no supposed to be the way to be played, but I kind of feel like the Europeans and foreigners in general always aim for that, try to do like optimized strategies and that kind of stuff. But Koreans in general are a bit more free there. They're a bit more willing to freestyle, and in general just use a little bit crazier strategies, crazier moves in general, and that's not something we like to do as much. There are a lot of things I take from the Korean players. I mean, I take stuff from all the players. It doesn't really matter if it's a low-ranked player even. I think everyone can have good ideas and ways to play the game that I can learn from, and I'm not necessarily gonna copy everything the Koreans do, but I do take ideas from there all the time and then just kind of take them to my own play, but not exactly the same way as they do it.
일단은 외국 선수들이랑 했을 때 배울 점이라고 생각하는 거는 좀 침착함이라고 생각해요. 생각하는 플레이를 많이 하는 것 같고 생각을 하기 때문에 그 침착함이 플레이에서 묻어나오는 것 같아서 그 부분이 많이 배울 점이라고 생각하고 아쉬운 점은 한 가지 빌드에 너무 의지하는 경향이 있기 때문에 그 부분이 조금 아쉽다고 생각합니다.
Interesting little tidbits there. I'm actually, I like that they kind of seem to have a bit of a consensus between both the Koreans and the non-Koreans on kind of what are the advantages or disadvantages of the way that each one of them play. But I think it's also very interesting to bring all that stuff up as, to some degree, SpeCial, while he is one of the non-Koreans, kind of just spends so much time in Korea that I kind of consider him almost Korean, like the half Korean of the non-Koreans.
Yeah, I mean, SpeCial, I've known the guy for like 15 years or something, and ever since Brood War, he has been copying Koreans, and then lately coming into his own in the last few years, where he is someone that you know understands the game at such a level that he is the one coming up with strategies as well, whereas before his mentors, you could say TY, Supernova at some point, right? People that he has modeled himself and his play after have been big inspirations, but now he is his own man and someone to copy. But I agree, very Korean-like style, as we haven't seen the intro for the bottom right-hand side player. Hello.
We're doing the top left first.
Wait, we already did.
But they moved, so when the AI comes in and has to analyze this game, we need to reestablish where the spawns are.
All right, well, top left-hand side, the man we're talking about right now, going for a forward barracks, it is Juan Carlos Tena Lopez, SpeCial for Cistern Gaming.
And down here on the bottom right-hand side of the map, representing Basilisk, he is none other than your king, Serral.
We were talking about SpeCial's inspirations in Supernova and Duai, but also his mom's name is Maru, so make of that what you will. I'm not even kidding, that's cool, huh?
That is fascinating. But is he... Oh, okay. I wanted to ask more about, is he inspired by Maru and all that stuff, but let's quickly talk about
probably twice over
pool here from Serral.
Yeah, it's just a safety early pool. Serral likes to do stuff like this. On this map, I've even seen him proxy hatch Clem not too long ago, so I was kind of hoping for that, but not happening this time around. It's just gonna be a safe opening from Serral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to remember which of the TVZs we saw this in. Was it actually Raynor versus SpeCial? I think yesterday one of the Zerg players kept opening up with like these early pools a little bit, playing a bit safer against their turn opponent. I think it may have been Raynor versus SpeCial, which makes me think, is SpeCial a little bit notorious for going for some of those more like proxy builds or something like that, a bit more aggressive lately?
Maybe it's just an underdog, overdog type mentality, right? Like Serral probably feels like he's very favored, especially going into the first game of a series. It's like, I'm gonna take minimum risk, and then, you know, if I can beat you with this, then, you know, I'll just keep doing it type thing. So it's kind of, I think, up to SpeCial to force respect. I will say, out of these openers, really cool thing from SpeCial is he didn't scout with an SCV, and he doesn't need to scout with an SCV with this barracks at the front, which I love, because you have a wall off. So if the Lynx snuck on by the Reaper, they would just meet a wall, whereas normally they would have a chance to deny or delay the CC on the low ground. So very cool detail there. So SpeCial not only gets the faster Reaper out on the map, but also gets away without that SCV scout, so saves a little bit of money, and every little bit counts in StarCraft. There's, you know, a lot of compounding. Oh, but this got inside somehow. Well,
yeah, I guess he had the depot down, but it's also interesting because he has reactor Reapers coming at it as well. A second SCV going down. Oh man, that was really not supposed to happen.
Really not supposed to happen, and that really hurts. I mean, 2 SCVs this early on is a pretty big deal, especially when you are already the underdog going up against someone like Serral. It really hurts.
Okay, I want to get your thoughts, Cats, on the fact that he's still producing reactor Reapers. That's pretty unusual, right?
Absolutely. I mean, difficult to swap with the 2 Lynx around, right? Like, they would have spotted the swap. So I don't know if this was planned or if it is something that he is doing now as a result of Serral checking. Now he goes for the swap, and maybe he wanted to do this 1 round of production earlier. I really don't know, but he's gonna do it right now. And still, Hellion and Reaper, I mean, this is almost TVT-like opening, but it should be pretty good up until the Roaches are out, right? Like, against Lynx, they should fare pretty well.
Yeah, it's also very interesting because he did then add on additional barracks, is getting up stim and everything, but does he even have a starport? Like, it seems like this is a very interesting and catered build for this particular thing. And yeah, no starport, just hanging around the 3 barracks, just the factory, pumping out bio units, and is looking to put on some early pressure over here. I'm just so interested. Is this going to hit with stim, and that's like the big timing to move out, or what?
Yeah, but Serral's being Serral, and he's gonna get an amazing scout right now. So he confirms 3 barracks all day, confirms what you were talking about. If there is this many barracks this early on, and the production that we have seen from SpeCial, very unlikely to get starport. SpeCial looking for a queen, not gonna be able to find it as some more Lynx pop out. And now 6 Roaches on the way. That should be kind of the end of this aggression from SpeCial, who is still making Marines, mind you. So there's not really a Marauder opening that capitalizes off of or covers for the weaknesses of the Hellions come the Roaches. So yeah, it's gonna be difficult unless SpeCial can find some damage here, perhaps. Not quite.
Yeah, Serral has just been a hard wall, especially with, like you said, with the Roaches that are going to be popping on out. That extra armor that the Roaches have make it a lot more difficult for unupgraded Marines to really bust on through, unless they just have critical mass of units or something. But you need that plus stim, and it seems like they are all going to be forced back for now. Starport finally also finishes up on that reactor, so it can get out the first round of medevacs, but those medevacs will be popping out a bit after stim is finished up, so it's not necessarily going to be a super crisp timing if that's what he was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a pretty massive attack from SpeCial when it happens. It's effectively going to be an all-in. As SpeCial's still posturing with his units, the Roaches are looking for a surround, I believe, so SpeCial has no way out through the back. He has to slid on past this Queen's trying to make an opening with a Hellion Grenade. He will be successful in that, but now the Lynx are ready from Serral. 3 layers from the finish. Phenom are gonna get rid of a lot of the buffer that SpeCial would have had for this upcoming attack. So no bueno for Juan Carlos Tena Lopez.
That was such a beautiful setup there from Serral. And even just, I don't know if it was coincidence that the Lings were that much further behind and happened to arrive at the perfect time to get the 3rd round of surrounds, or if he anticipated the Reaper grenades knocking the Queens around. But either way, Serral gets an enormous lead, I feel like, because like you were saying, this feels like it's going to be almost something akin to an all-in here for SpeCial. And he just lost half of the units that were going to be involved with the attack.
Yeah. And like I was saying, that was kind of the buffer, right? Like the Reaper grenades would have helped a lot in kind of making the army spread out on the side of Serral so that the Marines can have more firepower output. But as it stands, I mean, he just has 2 medevacs worth of Marines hitting at a very late timing, right? Usually this would hit little after 5 minutes. Instead, at 7 minutes, we have them floating around, and Serral already has a pretty good worker lead, 67, good creep spread, and even will take the rich gas base at the front here. So playing somewhat aggressively, which I love given his composition, right? Because Roach is usually not the unit that is particularly good at moving around the map, but this map is A, tiny, and B, with the creep spread that he has, with the position that he has, he can launch pad those Roaches forward very easily towards the other side of the map. So a counterattack could be the doom of Special if he ever gets overeager on the other side.
Yep, those Roaches I think are already working away at some of the rocks, which is going to open up the pathway across the map even quicker now, which is going to definitely behoove Serral with all these Roaches. Now, a couple of the Marines are going to try and draw the Roaches down to the south side as he cleans up some of the creep spread over here. Cannot take that fight head on, but he's going to just try and take whatever trades he can while the Queens are still playing catch up there. The rocks have already been knocked down, and Serral's gateway to his opponent's side of the map has been opened up.
Absolutely, and if it was any other Zerg player, I'd be like, oh, I wish this player made Infestors. Serral already has them on the way. He almost has them ready, and that is going to be fantastic for these Roaches, right? Because again, they're in mobile units. The Queens, he has a great number, also in mobile units. So now Fungal is a threat. Normally, the weakness of this army is catch, right? You can get outmaneuvered by the speed of these medevacs, by the maneuverability and ability to disengage of the Marines. But with Fungal, you have to be that much more careful if you are Special. You can't be as tricky, you can't be as free with your units, and that just frees up Serral to, you know, go up to potentially 5 bases and do whatever he wants.
Oh, really aggressive drop over here on top of all of these Queens that are actually focus firing down the medevacs. So one of them goes down before it even unloads most of the units. Marines do find opportunity to start sniping off some of these Queens. Despite the transfuse energy, does start coming in a little bit later, but overall, a solid defense for Serral.
Yeah, solid indeed. I mean, one of those Queens, unlucky, was barely out of creep, so unable to output its transfuse, and loses 2 Queens in the process, but still an advantage in that situation. So Special might be able to get a deny here, but he has to be fast to it. The problem is the medevac is not done healing the Marine, so he wanted to wait a little bit longer, but in that process he has been spotted by Serral and now displaced. So yeah, all things looking Serral here.
I'm wondering where those Infestors are, because I know that they were made earlier. I know that you were bringing them up and everything. I haven't quite seen them around on the map, and it looks like there they are on the front lines with these Roaches. We got Lurkers, 8 of them being morphed in as well. If these Infestors find 1 fungal growth on those Marines, I actually feel like that could just be enough to swing Serral into like going for a big attack, because he's got most of the army and all of the power units that he's looking for to go for a big attack with.
Absolutely. Now adding Lurkers as well, so he is becoming even more impenetrable. 3 Ravagers or 4 Ravagers here. You need 3 to kill the tanks. So we'll pounce on that opportunity, Serral, as soon as one of those tanks gets out of position. On the other side, there's plenty of Roaches to hold off the very few Marines that Special can spare from his main army. And now Special kind of has to turtle, right? If you're in this position, if you're Special, there's no way you're breaking through Serral at this point. He's already maxed, so I would say just chill, but instead he's gonna stim on forward and try to bite for this position, as he really wants that forward base himself.
Yeah, I also like the idea of him trying to hold just that high ground location, everything with the siege tanks. It's going to be more difficult for Serral to find a good angle, but his little Roach counterattack is going to draw a lot of the army back. And is Serral going to use the opportunity? Yes, he moves up the ramp in the center of the map as these Roaches buy the space and time. So now Serral knocks out those siege tanks in the center. He has opened up the doorways, and he is able to put some pressure on now.
Yeah, and this is very important grounds for Serral to gain, because it delays the expansion of Special further. It is very clear his intention is to expand forward onto that rich Vespin Geyser base, and now he will be allowed finally. But again, being set back a little bit. Special trying to go for a Doom Drop, but a little bit careless where he's flying. Right on top of creep means that Serral will know about it well in advance.
I almost wonder if this somewhat intentional. It's definitely not going to be intentional if you're flying straight in over the Queens and into the Spores, so a bit aggressive there, and he will eventually clean up these Queens, but a lot of the Marines went down before they even unloaded over here, so Serral should have next to no issues actually cleaning this up, especially with a couple of fungal growths being thrown down. But I guess the one minor advantage, I can't even call it an advantage there. He ends up tapping on out. Serral takes the first game. I was gonna say is that maybe his intention there was to draw Serral away, so like from the center, so he could establish that base. But losing all those units in the process, I don't think was his intention.
Yeah, probably not. Even if that was his intention, you would rather have it be unspotted and then have Serral react late. You lose a couple of seconds to take your base forward, Granted, like you're pointing out, that would be something that happens earlier if you draw your opponent back, but you stand to do more damage, and you're so far behind at that point that I think that was just the right call. Maybe, I mean, the one thing that you can say for that last drop is that maybe Special felt like I have to go as quickly as possible, and that is the fastest path, is not avoiding the hatchery and the potential creep. The other thing is maybe he didn't know about the creep being as far forward as it was, so maybe he thought, you know, I'll get spotted by the hatchery later on and I'll boost right there and then, but get spotted by the creep a little bit earlier than he would have wanted. Regardless, I mean, he was pretty dead.
Yeah. Really, really solid defenses there from Serral. I mean, from the get-go, it really did seem like Serral was able to deal with the kind of odd opening there from SpeCial, whether it was forced by like Lings that were forcing the additional Reapers to be made, the scouting information that he got about the additional barracks and everything being thrown down, as well as just like the delay of the starport. But everything just in the early game seemed like SpeCial was not really finding the mark with that build that he was going for.
Yeah, airtight defense from Serral, right? And I don't mind what SpeCial did, because if you're not gonna find those openings with the Reaper grenades and the Hellions to do massive amounts of damage, keep them alive, great. The problem was, I mean, that triple layer defense from Serral, right? Where he surrounds or backstabs basically with the roaches, has the queens, and then the layer of links in case the Hellions slip on through. So at that point, that really sucks, because if SpeCial manages to keep that army intact with the next two medevacs, you have a strong timing, right? If you morph those Hellions into Hellbats even, maybe a little bit more buffer, yeah, they're not going to be the most useful units in the world, but the Marines will be nice for their damage output. But when you lose those for free, just not much of a chance in the follow-up.
Definitely makes it difficult, but we are going to be heading into game number 2 as we start up here on the top left-hand side of Gresvan. Top of the red Terran player from Storm Gaming. He is SpeCial.
He really is. And in the bottom right-hand side, leading the series 1-0 for Basilisk Gaming, it is Serral.
Alrighty, well, we have yet again another one of these kind of low ground walls. I know I've been seeing this more and more lately from more Terran players, but specifically it feels like SpeCial really enjoys doing these.
Yeah, and I don't mind it. I haven't seen it punished really in today or yesterday, and it is very difficult in my experience to punish this. There is one player in NA that basically goes this every game, and what I do sometimes against it is pull drones, but that is reckless, that is crazy, and it is a huge risk, right? So I don't mind it. I really don't mind it. Of course, it's gonna be a little bit less beneficial in the sense that your add-ons are gonna be exposed on the top of the map rather than on the bottom, where your add-ons would be tucked into your own base if you are SpeCial. But yeah, I don't think that Serral's gonna look for a punish. I mean, he's certainly capable, but I don't think that he will.
Yeah. I think it is something that is fun to think about with Serral, who has, I think, in the past couple of years really shown that he's very willing to just throw down an early Roach Horn and go for it. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. It doesn't seem like it's going to be lining up in anything like that, as he does go for the hatch gas pool opening and doesn't really opt to go for any kind of early pool.
Yeah, and in fact, now that I'm revising in my head the games from yesterday, not only did SpeCial not get punished for this opening, but in fact this opening won him a game because it baited Raynor into a Ravager all-in that netted SpeCial one of his wins. So
that's true. Yeah.
So yeah,
that was a wild game too.
Wild indeed. Wild. So.
Well, interesting little movement there from the drone. Dodges the Reaper and should safely be able to get down that third base there. So Serral going to be feeling good about his start over here, not losing any drones or any links so far to the Reaper either.
Yeah, having to morph one of those drones into the spine. I don't know where the grenade went from the Reaper. I don't know if it disrupted a little bit more mining, but these early moves do make a difference. So again, I like the opening from SpeCial, right? Like because Serral is being a little bit cautious, dropping that extra or that pull early, making those links a little bit earlier than you normally would, and SpeCial is getting his Reaper out a little bit earlier than he would, not having to scout with an SCV as a result. These are little advantages for SpeCial. The problem last game is that he didn't get to compound those advantages damages into something larger, because Serral actually killed 2 workers, and that is actually a big deal in the early game, right? So it's a little bit better this time around from SpeCial if he doesn't let Serral in. I would say the early game has gone as well as it could have.
Yeah, absolutely fair. Reaper will get eventually pushed back over here. We did see that the factory did the swap around the bears. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Did a critter die?
No, it was the Reaper.
Just the Reaper. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty expected, right? Once Zergling speed finishes, it's hard to keep that Reaper alive in the middle of the map.
If you keep it out in the middle of the map, yeah. So a little bit of a mistake perhaps from SpeCial, but this is kind of Serral reclaiming some lead. Oh, we've been seeing so much of this today via just having that earlier pull.
Is it a fake out hyperflight rotor? No, he's just getting the Viking up to kill the Overlord, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is a real hyperflight rotor. So to talk about this opening a little bit and to kind of just discuss maybe why it's being explored more, right? Like, we had a patch a few months ago, and this opening was actually buffed, right? Like, hyperflight rotors, the research time was decreased by like 20 seconds, and the cost also was decreased by a small margin, something like 50 resources total, 25, I want to say. And, you know, in this matchup, conceptually, Banshees until Mutalisks and Speed Overseers are out should be pretty much uncatchable. So they have so much potential to do so much. And even in the TVT, like we saw Gumiho try it against Maru, very cool. At some point, Gumiho almost avoided a scan with them, forced a second scan, right? So you can see the potential and the maneuverability of units that don't really have to deal with pathing because they fly and they're super fast. But you kind of also have to find those openings. Very difficult to do against a player like Serral that has always great perimeters with the Overlords. So great applause for SpeCial to kind of be diligent and make that first Viking in the first place to clear the area for the Banshees to come in from unexpected places.
Yeah, and to emphasize even more what you were talking about there with the theoretical potential of Banshees in the matchup, even an Overlord with speed or an Overseer with speed cannot actually catch up to the speed Banshee when they're flying away. If the Banshee is able to stay out of range of the detection, like you actually just can't catch it. The Mutalisk can catch up with it, but the detection can't keep up, and that's going to be a bit of a problem in the end. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to gain that distance first, right? Because when you do damage, the Overseer is going to be close enough that it's going to take you a while to get out of vision of it. But yeah, it's very difficult. It's relatively easy to disengage if that was all that you had to do in a game of StarCraft. But there's so much to do that, you know, it's a game of inches, and Serral, I'm sure, is going to be well defended for this if he spots it. He's going to have to drop spores everywhere, and I like what SpeCial is doing. He's just kind of banking up these Banshees, and he's saying, as long as you don't scout me, I'm going to keep doing this, and it might work out better than it did for Maru.
Yeah, solid wall over there from Serral. Gets the Queen into a position where it'd make the Hellions really get choked up going to the Mineralite, and then the Roaches come in from behind, support things. Barely any workers really going down over there. Now, we do have the Overseer coming on in. Changeling also moves forward and sees the Tech Lab on 2 of the starports, and that should be the reveal. Yeah.
Yeah, so instant Spire and instant Overlord speed from Serral. He knows what he's up against. So again, he needs Mutas, he needs Overseers with speed in order to contend with this. But I love what SpeCial did, and SpeCial also, he knows, I've been spotted, it's go time. So all the amount of time that he was banking these Banshees, his plan was, I'm gonna go as late as possible, right? As soon as you spot me, and I mean, he managed to go unspotted for a very long time, considering it's Serral, one of the best, if not the best scouting player in the world. He always gathers so much information. So let's see what the Banshees can do before the Spire is was there a cancelled Spire?
Oh my god, why would...
He cancelled it.
I mean, the Banshees weren't on top of it or anything. It's a really interesting decision. Throws on a Hydra Den as well. I know that Serral got a little bit supply block from losing some Overlords right as the Banshees are also coming in as well. But it seems like his reaction is just pump out more drones and get up the Hydra Den infestation pit.
Yeah, so Serral is going to look for a different punish here. He's probably thinking something along the lines of, I'm already on 4 base, my creep spread is already pretty great. That gives me a lot of vision. I'll see these Banshees coming in. So instead of looking for the punish and chasing the Banshees, he's likely to make an Infestor maybe, or even a Vipers as he's taking up to a hive very fast, and just kind of fend off the Banshees with Queens, Spores, and Hydras. So he's not going to look to kill those Banshees so much as just not take any damage until he's ready later on with, I imagine at this point, Viper Hydra.
Yeah, I do wonder if that's going to be underestimating the potential of these Banshees. We already see that they can just right-click down a hatchery and kill it so quickly. Transfuse is coming in, saving the day, saving this hatchery for a while.
Please.
Ooh, but at the same time, the Hellions running on in, and it seems like Serral a little bit busy because it is very difficult to just continuously throw out those transfuses. It really does take all of your attention away.
Yeah, but lucky for Serral, he has the right units in the right place. He didn't have to react. He didn't have to run anywhere, as this hatch did end up getting taken down. So that was very expensive for SpeCial. Can we check out the unit slot app really quick? I can't imagine that was the best trade for him. And actually, over time, it's been pretty good. But yeah, in general, how many was that? 13 Hellions or something that have fallen. So not ideal. SpeCial still doing a very good job of expanding still. And still looking for this damage, but didn't really get many drones worth of damage, right? And now 6 Vipers on the way.
Oh boy, that is definitely going to make things a lot more complicated with Parasitic Bombs able to chase those Banshees down. Now the Banshees able to find a couple of these Queens, maybe looking a little exposed, but the Banshees are pretty low on hit points, so 2 more of them end up falling, and it's going to be about SpeCial's real transition into making use of the battle mech style now that the Cyclone count has actually been built up.
Yeah, Spire now going down again, this time around more likely than not for a Broodlord transition, as there is already a solid answer for these Banshees. It comes, you know, nearly 10 minutes into the game, but it's gonna be very effective. And I think just revising that decision, like that Serral himself revised as far as like the Spire, I think he thought it was too late before. So you know, like by the time you are out, I will have taken too much damage. So he kind of just skips over that step, but now goes back to potentially go for the Broodlords, as Battle Mech now is on the field looking to make something happen for the Mexican.
Yeah, a couple of these Vipers with the abducts are going to be able to find one of the Cyclones, the high-value target units that you want to be abducting there. Is going to be a nice pick-off for Serral, but decides to stay back at home. He knows that his army is still getting into its groove. He knows that he has that big Spire transition that you were talking about, getting set on up. And we'll see when he starts morphing the Greater Spire, and there it is, almost immediately after it finishes.
Yeah, and Serral already has kind of like the best answer to this, and we've been seeing this answer a lot. We saw it from Lambo, we saw it from Raynor, and now we're seeing it from Serral. So players a lot more favoring this time around Vipers and Hydras over Roaches. Again, the Hydra is also a unit that got buffed a little bit off of creep, especially as far as its speed is concerned. So it has an easier time disengaging from mech, and it's kind of a catch-all unit with insane DPS. So anything that gets abducted from the mech army will die.
Yep. And that is definitely something we've been seeing. The Siege Tanks getting abducted, 2 of them go in. Anti-armor missile, though, on a lot of the Hydras does mean that they have to be a bit careful against the damage output of this Terran mech force. So has to back off for the moment, but finds the Banshees in the process of backing off.
Yeah, not enough energy for a Parasitic Bomb there to you know, punish them as much as possible. Could have abducted a couple more, perhaps, but not opting to do so this time around. Serral is just going to regroup his army and get ready for the next transition, which is going to be full-on air. A second Spire goes down, so we're going to be seeing double upgrades go up. We see the Baneling speed also being researched, so Serral is going to have that very supply-efficient Banelings potentially if things were to get out of control, or if he gets, you know, a little bit too close to max. It's always good to have a very good mineral and a gas dump there.
Yeah, Serral needs to trade out a little bit of supply in order to make use of the Greater Spire. So he's going to try and find an angle to attack into, just where he can trade out versus some of these Siege Tanks, trade out versus some of the other units. He's going to be losing quite a few Roaches and Hydras over here. Has to be careful not to lose too much, but he is able to take care of most of the Banshees. Actually, all of the Banshees go down.
Yeah, That was still surprising. That was very surprising from Serral, because there was a clump of 3 tanks that could have been negated by a single blinding cloud, and then there would have been just 2 that you could have abducted or even charged into. But he didn't see the backline of tanks, so difficult to blame him for not wanting to commit. Instead goes for the abducts. But I mean, I have to say and give credit to Raynor, because he was so fantastic at this. Not quite as quickly doing the abducts into the center with the combo of the blinding cloud to follow, right? So takes a couple of those volleys that we saw Raynor avoid yesterday so effectively, and the army doesn't trade as well as it could have. Still in a dominating position is Serral, I think.
Yeah, now that the Broodlords are all morphing on in, 11 of them on the way, all he has to do is make sure that he buys enough time that he doesn't really take any damage from this kind of push out over here from SpeCial. And then I think that SpeCial should probably be caught very off guard by this. He has started some of that Viking production, as we do see some of those in the air, but Raven getting throwing out some interference matrices. It disappeared so fast, I thought the Viper was the Raven, actually. I was confused why it was still alive, but Broodlords come on in, and there's nothing here.
Nothing here. If SpeCial had known about this, Thor would most likely be the option there, as we now see Thor started. But yeah, these Broodlords are gonna have a free time here against the tanks. Serral is free to continue to push. I would love to see some Corruptors maybe for reinforcements in case there is those Vikings. But I guess he has still a decent number of Hydras on the ground and still a couple of Vipers that could deal with the Vikings somewhat effectively. So yeah, Serral again in a dominant position. This would be his opportunity to maybe continue to spread that creep a little bit on forward, as SpeCial is going to look for a counterattack, and this is the right move for SpeCial. You cannot engage this army with tanks, and you need to trade supply in order to make an army that can actually fight with it. So he's going to go sacrifice this army, look for a couple of hatches in the process, and thus manage to find the space, as the very slow Broodlords are going to be slow to react indeed. And Serral doesn't push on forward, actually. Going to go for the defense.
Yeah, I mean, he is going to be able to find SpeCial's army in the middle of creep, which means that those Hydras can jump in on this army very, very quickly. The Broodlords coming in to reinforce and defend. Raven's coming in from behind, but auto turrets, are they actually going to be enough to deal with this? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, no chance, Jose, here for SpeCial, I think. Or no chance Juan in this case. Does get a hatchery for his trouble, so that's something. And economically, I mean, he's well situated, right? If he can somehow hold on for a little bit longer, if the Thors can come online, that will be wonderful. But if we look at that forward 4th base position for SpeCial, it's very vulnerable to this sort of army from Serral. The good thing for SpeCial, though, is that in this attack, a lot of the creep that would serve as a launchpad to siege the forward 4th base from SpeCial from behind has been taken out. And that will make it more difficult for Serral to kind of like maneuver around that area, but it's still the prime location, and that's exactly where Serral's gonna go.
Yeah, it's more just going to be exactly what you were saying. That issue of his army supply is just not necessarily as high as he needs or wants just to deal with these Broodlords, and that means that another one of these bases is going to go down. And even though I agree, like the economic position of how many bases he had mining was great, as soon as you lose 1 or 2 of them, it's not so great because he didn't exactly have a big bank or anything going with it. Ooh. Exactly, and he had to spend so much of it in the transition to try to get Thors out. Only 3 Thors out here. Blinding Cloud is going to do a fantastic job of disabling most of those, but the 4 or 5 Vikings and the extra Thor on the left are still doing a good job against the Broodlord. The Hydras not so much, however, as they'll pounce on them, and this might just be lights out. SpeCial has lost most of his army, his forward base, and I mean, even if he retakes that base, it is going to be so difficult to defend. Against this, you would want something like Ghosts, especially because the Thors cannot defend that forward position because it is so choky at the 4th that SpeCial is trying to retake. But Serral's already trying to account for that. He's already going for Infestors to cancel snipes, even though there isn't any Ghosts coming. So it just really goes to show how far behind SpeCial is, and he will know that and tap out. There you have it, and Serral takes a 2-0 lead versus SpeCial. I think SpeCial looked really strong in a lot of parts of that game. It seemed like a lot of what he was doing may have started working at any given moment, but Serral, at the end of the day, he just did such a solid job on the defense against a lot of the early pressure and everything. He had those quick follow-ups I think you were talking about and really highlighting, Cats, of how fast he got up his transitions, how he made his movement into the later stages of the game that really just caused all the I guess like the losses there for SpeCial in the big army fights. He just wasn't ready for those big transitions.
Yeah, I would have almost liked for this many Banshees being unspotted to try for the main or something like that earlier, just to go for a riskier move. I'm not saying it's the better move. I think that if you're playing against a worse player or against a player of your own level, going after the fringe bases, right, knowing that you haven't been spotted would probably be your best bet. But against a player like Serral, I mean, maybe you gotta take that kind of risk to kind of just go for the throat and get some buildings or something in the main, because Serral just, I mean, despite scouting this as late as he did a fantastic job of just adapting, of just saying, okay, the Spire is going to be too late, right? Got to drop a Spire, then got to make the Muta, then got to get the Overseers on top of the army. By then, how much damage will I have taken? And instead just kind of tightens up his defense with the Queens, with the Hydras and the faster transition. So just incredible job from Serral.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very tough, as now this does put Serral at match point with a 2-0 lead. And as we get ready to move into game number 3, it does seem like Serral's just had a pretty solid series overall. He's looked really strong, especially on the defense against any of the kind of shenanigans that SpeCial's thrown out at him. SpeCial has definitely shown a tendency to prefer going for especially the battle mech kind of style in this matchup lately. I'm very curious, is he going to kind of rely back on that heading into game number 3, or is he going to try and mix things up yet again?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but the thing in my mind, SpeCial is one of the best mech players in the world, and I don't know that he's one of the best. You know, I don't know that he can compete with, say, Maru's bio to the same degree that he can play mech at a very high level. And mech is kind of sneaky in its own right because it's not super played, though it's seeing a little bit more play here and there. I mean, I like it. I like the chances of a SpeCial with mech just simply because it's something that Serral has to be a little bit less practice with, and we know how good he is against bio. But yeah, he has to mix something up for sure.
All right, we're going to be starting down here in the bottom right-hand side of Dragon Scales for map number 3. On top of the red Terran player from Storm Gaming, he is SpeCial.
And for Basilisk Gaming in the top left-hand side, perhaps even more special, he is Serral. Another one.
Another one. Another early pull, yeah. Repeating from game number 1.
And 2.
And I was going to say in game number 1, it didn't feel like it got a ton done, but it did actually manage somehow. He got some Zerglings in and found a couple SCVs. There's still the question of like whether those early Zerglings also made SpeCial feel uncomfortable swapping his add-ons and stuff with the forward wall. But it's kind of funny because this is the first game SpeCial's not going for the low ground wall in.
Yeah, you can't, right, on this map. Or I guess you can, but the ramp is makes it a little bit more awkward. There's a little bit less space. There's a ramp leading to the base rather than just flat ground. So maybe SpeCial doesn't think that's the way for this particular map. If he was on the other side, it would be impossible, straight up. So,
ooh, cats! I spy with my little eyes a Roach Warren before 2 minutes.
What a nasty. Yeah, right. I mean, this is going to be a handful of roaches, 5 to 7 or something of the sorts, just to apply a little bit of pressure, more likely than not. And we'll see how SpeCial will react. This would be a hard punish to something like a Wolof, right? So luckily for Serral, SpeCial takes the map into account and doesn't really go for it. So.
Yeah, I think SpeCial's probably going to be very happy when he finds out that he didn't go for the low ground Wolof over there. And I mean, that command center will be finished well before any of the roaches or anything pop out and head to his side of the map. But what is SpeCial's vision out on the map right now? He didn't send any SCV scout or anything, so.
And he went Marines, no Reaper.
Oh boy, yeah.
Oh boy. Yep. Well, I mean, this is Serral, I think, saying you didn't scout the last 2 games. And I mean, SpeCial had a reason not to scout the last 2 games. But this time around, I feel like he should have gone for the Reaper because he doesn't have that Wolof, right? So just trying to get a little edge, and as a result, he's going to get surprised here. There's not going to be a bunker. He's going to spot the Zerglings here. They delay the CC even. Catastrophic.
This could very well be a very fast game unless SpeCial makes some absolute magic happen over here and is able to react to this, because he still doesn't know about the roaches. I think he may just be catching wind of something soon as the Hellion is going to make its way forward. He sees the roaches now, needs to start thinking about throwing out bunkers and everything up on that high ground. That command center can finish up on the low ground, but it's desperation mode.
Yep, I'm gonna have to close this wall off here. At least he will get the CC finished. But Guadalajara, we have a problem. He's got to be calling out because, yeah, this is not looking too good.
Yeah, going to be losing a couple of these Marines to the Roaches, and as these Roaches get target fired down, Serral's doing a great job morphing them into Ravagers, target firing down that reactor. Is he going to be able to actually get it? I think with a Corrosive Bile, he should, and there it is.
Yeah, and now working away at the supply depots. Any SCVs that get involved here to try and repair them are gonna die, obviously, because there's range on the Roaches. A Cyclone probably the best possible choice that SpeCial could have gone for. A lot of people might think tank is the better option, but with 3 Ravagers, you could instantly take that down, and SpeCial will actually deal with this rather comfortably, as Serral with a little bit of an overextension, perhaps. I thought once the Cyclone is out, maybe you just disengage, but instead he's going to lose a lot of his army. So does get SpeCial supply blocked, does delay the mining on his natural, but it is not super cheap for Serral. So, you know, for my money, the best position that SpeCial has been in so far.
Yeah, even little things there, like one of the Ravagers not actually breaking the Cyclone lock-on and everything, so the Cyclone can actually just kill the unit really quickly there, so the Ravager doesn't get an extra Corrosive Bile and everything down. Now enables things like this, where Serral has just been doing nothing but droning behind everything, because, yeah, he needs to play some catch-up there. And actually some great micro here from SpeCial. One of the Marines, but keeps the Cyclone alive.
Yeah, almost ended up losing that Cyclone for no reason, but I absolutely have to commend SpeCial for this. It is such a beautiful move from him to have the medevac ready. He had to think, I got this without the medevac, right? Because it's so much easier to get scared by that attack from Serral and make a Liberator earlier, or maybe start going for Banshees or something to prepare for a follow-up. But instead, he fends off and a medevac pops up, which is awesome because he's completely ready to go on the counter offense and do some damage on the other side of the map. So huge props from SpeCial, just kind of knowing what he's up against, knowing his capabilities to defend, and knowing that he's going to have that space to do damage on the other side after the fact. And yeah, capitalize on that beautifully. A good start for the Mexican.
Yeah, great reaction to a theoretically really bad situation where he just seemed like he was going to be very unprepared for that big attack. The defense, like you said, from Serral just committing really hard, and the counter punish there from SpeCial with the double Cyclone drop. Now the Liberator comes on forward. The Queen's busy chasing away the Cyclones and are even going to get locked onto one, but they really just want to be pushing back that Liberator right now. And they're going to find
those links. Yeah, beautiful links. I mean, you can see the thought process there from SpeCial is so beautiful as well. He's thinking, I'm going to snipe the Queens that go for the Liberators with the Cyclones, but Serral too quick to pounce with those links to zone out the Cyclones and allow the Queens to deal with the Liberators swiftly. So, yeah, the bait's not going to work here for SpeCial. Does get 2 drones for his troubles, though.
Yeah. And still keeping those Cyclones alive with the medevac for now. Gets a little bit lower on hit points, but just really doing a great job playing with the hit points of those Cyclones. And behind all of this, there was a 3rd CC finished up. SpeCial is finally getting up all of his poor production and everything, adding on the additional barracks and whatnot. And Serral, he had to make a lot of early Zerglings to deal with all of the little forms of harassment from the Cyclones for the attacks, and he is finally now starting to get it up to like a much healthier drone count and everything, around 65 or so workers. But it's now also where Serral is going to be thinking about, all right, what units do I really want to start committing to? And the answer basically was Roaches. He's going for Roach speed and adding on Infestation Pit.
Yeah, a beautiful transition here from Serral. I mean, this game is pretty even. As many props as we have given to SpeCial, he's not getting out of control or anything like that, and Serral has had a decent economic lead for a little while. So, yeah, gonna be cut from 20 to 16 over the last minute or so, and SpeCial is taking his 3rd, but the creep is mostly uncontrolled, right? There hasn't been any Hellions out on the map. There hasn't been like the normal, like we have a medevac with Cyclones, but not really with Marines or something that can easily stand their ground and kind of deny or kick or kill those creep tumors quickly. So Serral does have advantages to work with here, and Roaches make a lot more sense as well when you have that freedom to freely spread your creep.
I think that's a really good point to bring up, is the creep spread just going completely uncontested. And I mean, we don't even really see any opportunities for SpeCial until maybe now to actually start pushing back any of that creep with any of his units outside of, I guess, the Cyclones. But then the Cyclones wouldn't have been getting any damage done during everything. So he's going to start moving forward. He's going to start slowly pushing back some of this creep. But look at that Roach count. It's going to be a hard no to SpeCial moving in onto creep.
Yeah, and you saw there just how ineffective the Cyclones are at taking the creep, right? Because they fire so slowly, they can't really lock onto it. And yeah, so it's not really the best tool that he could have used there. As Serral continues to take many gases, he wants to go into these lurkers again. Very similar transition to what we saw in game 1. It is what the Europeans named the Cave Bob build. And yeah, we're gonna see roaches into lurkers basically.
Oh, nice jump over here from SpeCial. He is able to find a handful of these queens, find a handful of these drones as well before the roaches get in position. And with all the queens mostly taken care of, oh, the fungal growth is going to change things, though. I was going to say you could load up into the medevacs, but catching SpeCial and me, frankly, off guard there. A big pickoff there for Serral.
Massive, massive. I mean, takes all the wind out of the sails of SpeCial here, and that means he's gonna have to regroup and maybe try to play passive again, but not really what you want to be doing when you have a Serral that's transitioning into the later stages of the game so quickly. So SpeCial, I mean, considering picking up the pace here, but he just lost most of his army, so it's gonna be very difficult.
Yeah. With the lurker den, I believe, now finished up as well, the potential of those lurkers coming on out is going to be there, and SpeCial is going to have to worry about just getting caught out of position to be defending in the right places at every given moment. It is going to be such a tough situation for SpeCial moving forward in the next couple stages of this game. Infestor is also potentially looking for another big fungal growth, so he really has to pay attention to this army.
Yeah, SpeCial at least holding a very powerful choke here, so it's going to be difficult for Serral to kind of like engage this army, right? So as long as SpeCial can crawl here towards him, it will be or potentially okay. Serral's kind of poking and prodding with this very small army and will actually find one of these buildings building here, so that is nice. And he also spots, okay, there's no Wolof over here. That is an opening that Serral can test later to cut reinforcements as well, right? Still, I love how SpeCial is hugging kind of like the right side of this choke. It will be difficult for Serral to dislodge, but yeah, he will get rid of one of the forward tanks, so that's a good start. And army-wise, I mean, he's pretty far ahead too. So
yeah, also cutting off reinforcements and everything. And I think one of the difficulties there for SpeCial is that it was hard to move up that choke point now, and now he has to deal with his army come bombarding in on his position. Fungal growth's also coming out on top of the medevacs. And you can see SpeCial's in between a rock and a hard place. Literally a rock on the north side and the hard place being the rest of the roaches and ravagers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, only one tank remaining, but again, this position has yielded fruits for SpeCial. It was beautiful that he was hugging the right side, because that makes it very difficult to flank from the bottom, as we just saw an ineffective trade from Serral. I think Serral didn't need to take that trade. I think he probably could have just gone for Vipers and then easily gotten rid of those tanks with Blinding Clouds or Abducts and then taken a better trade, but he is in a very good spot regardless. So now SpeCial has been dislodged from this position, might look to expand. Actually, I was gonna say south, but he's going towards Serral once again. So Serral can now break these rocks to the north, I would imagine, and just continue to spread creep towards SpeCial to look for a close.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, he's also going to be doing this little attack with the roaches. I don't think he'll be able to break on through over here, although 2-2 really paying huge dividends there. Okay. One Sport Crawler almost finds, it does find that one medevac, and that's a nice pick off, but he needs to get the rest of his units over here. Roach Hydra is not exactly the most mobile composition in this case.
Yeah, maybe he can get the lurker then, and that'll be just about it. The problem for SpeCial is that he doesn't have an anchor here, right? Imagine those 3 tanks that died with this attack holding that choke. All of a sudden you're trading so much more efficiently, but it's Marines just with bio mostly, or medevacs rather, just with bio mostly Marines. So not gonna work out too well. Does get rid of the lurker then and slows down those upgrades for Serral, who instantly drops another one. Even before it died, I think he dropped it because it's almost done.
Yeah, and we saw in the picture-in-picture that roaches on the counterattack, being able to find additional siege tanks and everything, moving into that natural, really causing a lot of havoc there. Eventually do get cleaned up, but SpeCial, he is down a lot of supply. It's not just because Serral has inflated roach supply. It is because Serral has gotten into his groove over here. The lurkers are here, and they are finally ready to go for an actual attack offensively as he finds siege tank after siege tank with these ravagers.
Yeah, I mean, these lurkers don't have the upgrades, but Serral is maxed out. So I think he's just trying to trade some army. If it doesn't go too well, he's going to be okay retreating and trying again later. If it goes well, he'll obviously just end the game. But yeah, I mean, this is not an ideal attack for Serral in the sense that he only has 2 lurkers. But I mean, testing the waters will get rid of a very important forward factory there. And 5 more lurkers on the way. Those upgrades now restarting with the Talons. I think he already finished the range earlier, and that is the more important upgrade, arguably, in this composition. And SpeCial, yeah, this is
fungal growth plus lurkers, not where SCVs really want to be, but I think that this may just be a bit too much. 3-0 from our king Serral, and he ends up qualifying for the offline event.
Yeah, very comfortable 3-0 there from Serral, making it look a little bit easy in that third game as well. SpeCial, I can't recall any moment in time where he was, you know, in a super good position, but he held on his own through the early games at least. So props to him to even defeat Raynor to make it here. We're gonna go to the analysts and see what they think.
That's us, thank you. Yes, that is our third player moving through to Gamers 8 qualifying directly here is Serral with a 3-0, and for a SpeCial, he brings him crashing down to reality after his previous win with a bit of a strong showing from Serral. Roddy, looking at how this series went out and how it played out here, any surprises, or are we all on the same page here?
No, unfortunately, I don't think there was much of a surprise. Obviously, we were hoping for a little surprise after the amazing games that SpeCial was able to show us yesterday, but this was a completely different series. It felt that SpeCial could never really force his will onto Serral. We were never really playing SpeCial's game. It really did feel that Serral was just so comfortable in every stage of the game. Early game, mid game, late game. And what I really admire is how comfortable he got with roach styles as well against Cistern, man. Like, I feel like it used to still be a little iffy sometimes, but Yona was in total control, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at these games. There are a lot of moments where I felt like Serral just had a bald fist of roaches, and he's like, okay, bang, time to finish this off, time to get this done. ZG, this was very, very strong by Serral, and I mean, as much as SpeCial kind of mixed things up with a few different strategies across the series, not really able to gather too much momentum.
I think Roddy put it very well. He wasn't able to kind of force his will onto Serral, whether that's just kind of showcasing an overwhelming amount of skill that kind of catches Serral off guard, or, of course, going with a very odd build to catch him off guard. The builds didn't really work out. They were certainly interesting, but I'm not even sure exactly what the plan, for instance, in game number 1 was. And then perhaps because, you know, Serral was going for the roach styles, it might have also taken some of the wind out of the sails of SpeCial's perceived moment of attack, like moment of favoritism, which would be like mid-game bio pushes. Roach Ravager kind of, you know, you have to respect that a little bit more than the bullying that happens with lane baneling, and perhaps SpeCial just really wasn't having a good time against the new and improved Serral roach style.
Yeah, and it felt like in game 3 as well, a bit more of an oppressive situation when it came to the fungal growth. Every single time they were able to land here, Roddy, SpeCial was just constantly losing more and more and more.
I mean, I think we're all traumatized from beautiful fungals, so it's not something you really want to highlight, but I'll give it to him. There were some beautiful fungals there on Dragon Skills in the top right, in the main, on the SCVs as well, towards the tail end of that game. Yona is just incredibly good at every single thing in StarCraft 2, and that is why his records are so impressive, and that's why the man wins as many tournaments as he does.
There you go, and he moves through to Gamers 8. We can probably check in with the bracket as well. Those were the highlights brought to you by Aramco, so thank you very much for them to join us here for Gamers Without Borders. And that means now we have our first player moving through here from the EPT bracket. It will be Serral. I was bamboozled. I thought the TVT was coming up, but not to be. That's the next one on the way. Unfortunate for SpeCial to go out, bow out 3-0 in this, but he does have another life here, Jess, of course. He's going to be going down to the lower bracket, and who is he playing? We're about to find out, I guess.
Yeah, I'm refreshing, you know. I'm just like, I'm waiting for that. Okay, so he's gonna face the winner of Lambo versus Spirits. Both players I absolutely think he has a chance against. I don't know who he would be hoping to face. Honestly, Spirit is a real powerhouse in TVT at this point. Maybe a year ago I would have I still would have said that would have actually been very even, but now I think Spirit is maybe favored. So maybe he's hoping Lambo wins that one. I'm not sure. It's definitely dangerous territory now for SpeCial.
Maybe. I mean, you know, obviously you come off the back of winning against Reina. You don't beat Serral here, but I think SpeCial might be looking at Lambo, Roddy, as a good opportunity to kind of flex some of those TVZ muscles again.
Yeah, it's a lovely little side of the bracket because you just know that all three of them are very confident individuals. They look at that and be like, this could actually be my weekend to qualify already. Yeah. You know, like Spirit, SpeCial, Lambo, all of them will generally believe that they can defeat the other two players in that side of the bracket if they bring their A game. So that actually is something to really look forward to. I have no idea who I favor. I think there is a valid argument to be made for all three of them.
Yeah, definitely so. Definitely. We're just checking as to whether or not we're going to be able to get an interview with Serral, who's advanced on to Gamers 8 here. But ZG, I mean, something you brought up whilst we were thinking about questions and things like that was that first game build. It was a little bit precarious. I too was having a few question marks around it. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I honestly was looking at it, prepared to think of some big brain, you know, situation, and I really couldn't. So I'm glad the casters brought up that it could have been a 4 situation where he was supposed to swap off faster, because they thought he was going to do some type of like 2-1-1 with Hellions development from that, but then he didn't. And then, you know, maybe the Reaper Hellion would have been a little more powerful. Or honestly, just Reapers with Marines. There's a couple of combinations that I know that SpeCial would be the first one to experiment with, but then it just kind of turned into, you know, Hellion Reaper harassment, which I don't think adding on too many Reapers really changes the dynamic for Zerg players. Not to mention that completely awesome surround that Serral eventually got. So certainly didn't throw him off if that was the intention.
Roddy, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's just one of these builds, and like, I don't know, maybe something did go wrong on SpeCial's end. We're gonna have to double check that with him, but I definitely see universes where if your Reapers and Hellions don't get surrounded by slow roaches the way that they did, because they kind of got trapped there, then maybe you keep those units alive a bit longer, you push back the creep, and then your bio follow-up is somewhat quick, so then maybe you can force Serral to respect the amount of Reapers and Hellions you have at the front, and that could open the doors for the first 2 medevacs to deal some damage, and then it snowballs, right? The way that a lot of Terran builds can snowball. Maybe that's the idea behind it. I don't know. But obviously, the moment we lose our Reaper Hellion, it just becomes way too easy for Serral to then get ready for that bio follow-up.
All right. Well, I'm getting word that the interview is ready. So let's get this going. Thank you, guys. As we now greet on the man advancing to Gamers 8 here from the qualification is, of course, Serral. Ah, okay. First things first. Serral, can you hear me?
I can.
Amazing. Congratulations, mate, for qualifying. Good job. Good job. A 3-0 going your way. Actually, I'm wondering if the other guys can you speak to him or not. Let's test. Roddy, can you?
One too.
Hello, the great Jonas Sutala.
Everything seems to be working just fine.
All right. Well, I thought I was going to be conducting this interview alone, but apparently everybody can hear everyone. This is great in the Colaris Dome. So, ZG, actually, do you want to go first with question?
Yeah, well, I guess I'll have to highlight the death segment. Serral, when you saw that first game build order, did you have any ideas to what would actually be developing from that, or was also a bit confusing for you?
Yeah, I mean, the build order was pretty confusing. I did see the extra Raxes in his main base because my sneaky Overlord pattern got him a bit off guard. But I was kind of thinking he was going to do like a 3 Rax with a lot of Hellbats and some Reapers, some kind of that kind of build, but he did wait for the Medivacs with the Marines, so it wasn't something I expected, but obviously the opener was the same he used against Raynor with the double gas opening, and I think in general it was a bit confusing game for me, but in general I had it under control most of the times.
Yeah. It certainly helped that you got that surround, which was quite well done. And then I'll just go with 2 questions, I guess. It makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So game 2, you did scout that Banshees were on the way, but relatively late. You know, there's a lot of Banshees already prepared. And the casters noticed that you ended up canceling a Spire against it. So what was going through your head during that moment?
Well, I think if you're playing Roaches there, Hydra, just going Vipers is pretty tasty in general because nothing really beats Vipers there before they get coast. So I think that's a good call always. But obviously, I think also going Spire there wouldn't, even like Mutas there would be pretty good, I think. So I'm not sure if that's the right call. I'm not the most experienced, but I went with the safe way, and I knew I was going to win probably with that one.
All right, cool. Rotterdam, do you have any questions?
Yeah, maybe a little bit about yesterday. And first of all, congrats, Yona. Obviously, great performance by you as always. I think this series it had its moments, but it was kind of one-sided. Yesterday, I don't think we could have called that a one-sided best of 3. I think we can all agree that Showtime really pushed you to the limit. In Game 2, he played awesome. But that Game 3 on Dragon Skills was a bit of a nail-biter. I don't know how well you remember the game, because I know 24 hours have gone by, but it felt, at least to us, very close towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, the start wasn't great in that game because, well, I mean, the start was actually pretty good, but I kind of messed up a lot against the adepts there. I lost a lot of links and that kind of stuff, so I wasn't too happy how it was going. And, but I mean, it was okay, I feel like. But then he got my army off guard in the middle, and I thought I just lost the game there. I didn't expect him to beat her at all, and he kind of found me off guard. But luckily, I managed to barely hold the attack there. I think he could have waited a bit longer. I didn't really have any big threats coming, like no Spire, no Lurkers, nothing. So I think if he just waited for 1 minute more, got a lot more Archons, he probably goes through me there. But I mean, he thought he had an opportunity with how much of my army he killed there before.
All right, then I have 2 more very tiny quick questions. Was it Showtime just playing incredibly good yesterday, or did you feel that maybe you didn't necessarily bring your A game? And second question, were you a little bit sad not to have a best of 5 with Rainer here today?
I think Showtime played very well yesterday. I actually feel like I was playing pretty good in general. Like the second game, for example, I didn't do any major mistakes in my opinion, except for the 2 Oracles killing so much. But it was a pretty good game, and all of those games were actually pretty good by my side. But I think Showtime is just I have a really good win rate against him, but I do think his style it's very hard to play against, and I think when pros plays like that, it's always tough. I feel like my best chance is always to go straight into late game, but obviously I can't do that every game. But yeah, I think he played pretty well, and I mean, I'm a little sad for Rainer, but at the same time, I'm happy I didn't play him, I guess.
Oh. Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Yona.
All right, well, I mean, basically, I have no more questions to be asked here, to be honest with you. Serral, any final words, shout-outs for your team and fans before we let you go?
Yeah, just shout out to Basilisk for all the support they have gave us, and obviously thanks for organizing the event. It brightened a lot of people's year, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Serral. Congratulations for qualifying, and we'll see you at Gamers 8.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Awesome stuff. I genuinely did think I was conducting that completely alone, so it's awesome that we were able to get the cross-dialogue going here, guys. That was good job, and now it's good to hear from him in high spirits here, Roddy, looking good going into the main tournament itself.
Yeah, just another day at the office for Yona, I feel like. He just has a relatively empty calendar because he doesn't play and everything, but this is just one of these things. He's like, oh, 2 important days, a little circle around it, shows up, does his thing. Yesterday, had to work for it very hard. Today, it just felt like he was a bit more on point than SpeCial was, and job well done, and now he can go back into hiding until the next big thing is that he wants to play.
There you go, there you go. All right, from one world champion, prior world champion, qualifying into Gamers 8 now, as we're going to go to a break and go to yet another world champion here for, I almost said the Intel Extreme Masters, but no, it's Gamers Without Borders. It's too programmed into me, all right? It's too programmed into me. We're going to go to a break, and when we return, we've got more StarCraft on the way.